There was a night in 1971 when the world woke up a little less sure the US dollar would survive. No single explosion, no single headline, just a decision that cracked a global promise that a paper note could stand for the weight of gold. That decision didn't kill the dollar, but it brought it closer to the edge than most people realize. I'm economic historian. Today, we trace the day the US dollar nearly died, from Nixon Shock to the emergency presses of 2020, and show the one lesson every saver must know. This video is history as a warning. Ready? Let's go. On August 15, 1971, President Richard Nixon announced the US would suspend convertibility of dollars into gold. For a quarter century after Bretton Woods, foreign central banks had been able to swap dollars for gold at a fixed rate. The system relied on an implicit promise: the dollar was as good as gold. But rising deficits, the cost of Vietnam, and global imbalances made that promise brittle. Nixon's move, the Nixon Shock, severed the official link. Suddenly, the dollar was no longer anchored to precious metal. It became fiat, valuable because governments and markets agreed it was. That switch created flexibility, and global finance seized it. But flexibility breeds temptation. Debt can be financed with paper instead of metal, and promises can be met by simply creating more money. The 1970s answered the question, what happens when a major currency loses its anchor? Inflation surged. Oil shocks and supply problems collided with money that could be expanded. Wages lagged, prices jumped, and confidence wavered. Central banks chased inflation, sometimes too late, sometimes too timid. By 1980, the US faced a choice: accept persistent inflation or break it with pain. Enter Paul Volcker, who pushed interest rates into double digits to starve inflation of demand. It worked, but it also showed how fragile confidence can be. Correcting course required real economic scars. The takeaway: once money becomes trust rather than metal, restoring that trust costs time, credibility, and often economic hardship. The dollar's survival didn't only hinge on gold or inflation. It also depended on complex global credit webs. In 1998, markets nearly snapped when long-term capital management blew up, a private meltdown threatening global banks. A coordinated bailout stopped immediate contagion. That was a wake-up call. The dollar sits inside a fragile architecture. Then came 2008. Lehman Brothers collapsed in September. Credit markets froze. Global trade teetered. Central banks, including the Federal Reserve, flooded markets with liquidity to stop the system from seizing. If the Fed hadn't acted, bank runs and cross-border credit collapses could have pushed reserve currencies into chaos. The rescue did not destroy the dollar, but it revealed how close modern finance can come to systemic failure. Fast forward to 2020. A pandemic shut down economies overnight. Governments and central banks responded by opening the money spigot at a scale the world had never seen outside wartime. Trillions were created, asset purchases ballooned, deficits exploded. Stocks and property surged. For the wealthy with assets, it looked like a rescue. For ordinary savers, the fear was different. The future purchasing power of their cash looked shakier. This episode didn't kill the dollar either, but it reopened the fundamental question Nixon exposed. How much faith will markets and people place in paper when its supply can be expanded almost at will? A currency survives so long as trust endures. Every emergency that pushes printing higher is a quiet test of that trust. When we say the dollar nearly died, we don't mean it vanished overnight. We mean there were repeated moments: regime change from gold to fiat, shock inflation, credit freezes, emergency money creation, where confidence could have collapsed, sparking runs, barters, and global credit seizures. Currencies don't fail from a single decision. They fail when incentives, policy, and politics repeatedly erode the web of trust that supports them. And each rescue, whether Volcker's rates, the Fed's liquidity in 2008, or fiscal monetary support in 2020, is another bandage over the same structural risk. Bandages help, They don't erase the long-run vulnerability. History teaches winners and losers. When trust is strained, winners are rarely those holding the most paper. Winners hold real assets, productive businesses, land, scarce commodities, or diversified claims across jurisdictions. They hold liquidity in forms that remain useful when one system stumbles: foreign reserves, hard assets, or the ability to produce value. Losers are often the savers on fixed incomes, or those whose claims exist only as domestic paper with little external backing. That pattern repeats from Rome's debased coins to Weimar's wheelbarrows and to modern balance sheets. Okay, practical moves. Do 5 things this week that lower your personal currency risk. 1. Diversify currency exposure. Keep a portion of savings in a stable foreign currency or a reputable offshore account. 2. Hold real assets. Small, income-producing property or a tiny stake in productive business can hedge paper risk. 3. Keep liquid dry powder. Cash is useful, but cash in the wrong place can be frozen or eroded. Spread liquidity across systems. 4. Avoid foreign currency debt unless your income matches that currency. Mismatches can blow up fast. 5. Invest in transferable skills and networks. When systems strain, the ability to earn and trade locally or cross-border is invaluable. These aren't panic moves, they're prudence. Small allocations and a little paperwork that buy time when the next shock hits. The US dollar didn't die in 1971, 1980, 1998, 2008, or 2020. But each episode showed how close major currencies can come to losing the public's faith. History doesn't say this will happen. It says this can happen. And here are the patterns. Learn the patterns. Hedge a little. Keep your options. If this changed how you see the dollar, drop a comment. Which moment surprised you most? If you want more deep dives that turn history into practical protection, hit subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.